All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. I'm Adam Benigni alongside Maiorana and Vic Carucci, Sports Talk Live colleague, WGRZ, SiriusXM NFL Radio, Hall of Famer. Vic, thanks for joining us. And, it must be a big week if you're on the show. And I suspect with the Kansas City Chiefs coming to town that it is.
Yeah, and I was out at One Bills Drive on Wednesday, the big media day of the week, to kind of take it all in. But you're right. You don't get many of these kinds of games, and it's felt like this whole season, other than the season opener, it's felt like, we just haven't had the bigness of a week like this.
I agree, Rick. Every year, though, it seems like this is the game, right? The Chiefs and Bills have become, I guess you could make the argument it's been the best game pitting two contenders every year, right? I mean, there's years where other teams might fit into the slot, but year after year after year, it's been the Bills and Chiefs. They're both going to be fighting for probably home field advantage in the AFC playoffs just about every time they meet. And so it has become the game, I think, at least right now in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's interesting, though, Sal and Adam, that Sal is absolutely right. I mean, the context of this game is just that. It's two teams that you expect. I'm not sure I'm going to put fully before that. And this is where I'm going next. Yeah. It feels different in the sense that, okay, Kansas City Chiefs, third place in the AFC West and out of the playoff picture, bubble, whatever we want to call it, right? They're technically, if the season ends today, they're not in the playoffs. And the Buffalo Bills, we know, second place in the AFC East. Now, again, it's October and, so much season to go and so much can change. But when you look at it, it feels like there was more of a formality that they're going to play the regular season game. Of course, last four in a row, Bills have won. But see you in the postseason, guys. And I literally think that was the conversation between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes coming off the field in Orchard Park last year in the regular season. And sure enough, they met in that championship game. And this year, just a little different in that sense. And I look at it from the Chiefs' perspective with the Chargers and the Broncos in that division. I mean, they've got a fight on their hands. They still may be the best of the three of them, and we could argue they are right now. But again, in terms of the way they started the season and where they are now, they still are climbing a hill.
Would you guys both agree that, given the way things have transpired to this point, that the loser of this game, right, now you're talking about major home field implications, right? I mean, it's not too early to start factoring in some of those issues as well. I mean, whoever comes out on the short end of I understand it's the regular season. Things have gone one way in the Bills' favor during the regular season. Postseason, it's been all Kansas City. But I do think, given what's happening in both of these divisions, that there's some weight that's carried on the downside of this game as much, right?
Well, yeah, I would think I wouldn't even jump ahead to the home field advantage yet. I mean, that's been the case in the past few years here. This game has really meant that at the end. But right now, both of these teams have other things to worry about. As Vic pointed out, they're in third place in the West. The Bills are in second place. I think the loser of this game, guys, really puts themselves in a very difficult spot to win their respective divisions. You've got the Chargers and Broncos, who are both playing pretty well. They don't have the schedules that the Chiefs have, that first place schedule. And then the Bills, look, the Patriots right now, the way their schedule lays out, they could sleepwalk their way to probably 12 wins. I mean, really. I mean, you look at their schedule, they've got some tough games. The Bills would be one of them. I think there's two others. I think I saw somebody break it down this week. They could easily go 6-3. That's losing to the Bills. That gets them to 12 wins, guys. If the Bills lose this game, they would have to go, 7-2 just to get to 13, which would be enough to win it. I don't know if this Bills team is winning 7 out of 9 games against their schedule. I just don't see that.
No, I don't see it either.
Yeah, and Sal, you lead this conversation right where I think it needs to go. It isn't just where these respective teams are. When I say respective, of course, talking Bills, talking Patriots and Chiefs, just for the sake of the meaningful conversation about, especially from the Bills standpoint, where they are headed or not. It's how they're playing. It's how all three teams are playing. And we know, and I know you guys have covered it, and I'm sure we can cover it a little more in this podcast. We know something is amiss with this Buffalo team. An odd thing to discuss after a 40-9 beatdown of the Panthers, except it didn't feel like a beatdown, and it didn't feel like the Bills in scoring 40 points were a dominant football team. Really, not unlike the opener against Baltimore, where all that explosion happened in the fourth quarter, because up to that point, it was a game the Bills should have lost. And probably when it was over, you looked at the analytics, they defied incredible odds to come out with a win that night. But that was a win. All right. But now we look at where they are now and the dysfunction, and I don't think that's too strong a word, of the passing game. Something is not right there, and it includes all elements of it. And Josh Allen is part of those elements, receivers, the way Joe Brady is coordinating and whatever, and the defense. And there's a bit of a list of issues there, we know. And then you look at the Chiefs averaging now, in their last 5 games, 31 points, I believe it is, per game on average. And they've won 4 of those 5, if I'm right. They're rolling. And you mentioned it, Sal, the Patriots, not only their schedule, but Drake May is playing some really good football. Mike Vrabel's program is they're I think they're buying, not think they're buying, they are buying in a significant way. So I would say that you look at where each of these teams is right now, unless something really changes with the Bills, their course is not looking anywhere near as good as those other 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way things are trending, right? And we all are familiar with the Bills situation, and we'll get into that here as we continue over the next several minutes. Chiefs, Vic, you alluded to some of those numbers. They've won 5 of their last 6 games, right? And have been absolutely dominant. Last 3 games, they've outscored, last 6 games, they've outscored their opponents 176 to 84. Last 3, 89 to 24. So the offense has come to life. Rasheed Rice is back. They're kind of rounding into form. Very aggressive with Andy Reid at this point. I think I read the number. They've converted 12 of 14 fourth downs to this point in the year, right? So they have their weapons. They're going for it on that side of the ball. The Bills have been vulnerable on the defensive side. We all know what's happening offensively. And the Chiefs' defense is really, in the last 3 games, is kind of rounded into form as well. So, I mean, there's no question which team is trending up and which team is trending down, or kind of, hovering somewhere in between heading into this game. Advantage Kansas City.
Yeah, no question. And
I mean,
Sal, you wrote about it the other day, just in kind of scouting this before the Washington Monday night game. But I think you painted the picture so well that where this Kansas City team is, and it isn't just what they're doing, the talent's there too. Rasheed Rice coming back is a big deal, but they've got some studs on defense too.
Yeah, they do. Look, the offense, I mean, I'm sure we're going to break down each side of the ball here, but we could probably start right with Kansas City's offense. You guys have already alluded to the points they're scoring. They're fully functional now. Mahomes, as I said the other day, fully weaponized, right? He gets Rasheed Rice back. That guy is such a difference maker for what they do. He really, he's the guy that bumps everybody else in their receiver core into the proper slot, right? Xavier Worthy probably isn't a number 1 guy, but he's a hell of a number 2 and a huge threat because they have Rice back. They've got guys like Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, who are just good, functional players who have a role in their offense. Hell, Tyquan Thornton is even a guy that can run a deep pass and make you worry about it, which opens up underneath for guys like Kelsey and Noah Gray. I look at this matchup, fellas. I don't see how the Bills cover these wide receivers in this game. Not with, if you're going to play Tre'Davious White at all, and then you replace him with a rookie who, got his feet wet last week, but that was the Panthers. You're mixing in another rookie with Jordan Hancock because damn well Poyer can't play pass defense. The linebackers are not only injured, but right now mediocrities, I could say. I mean, right now they're kind of mediocrities, and they have 2 functional defensive tackles right now. And one of those guys is a rookie. Tell me, boys, what I'm missing here. How do the Bills stop this offense? With that alignment of guys, how do they prevent this team from scoring 40?
I can't. And those same thoughts were swirling through my head. And you laid it out very well right there. Who is covering the dangerous people in that receiving group? And it's a bunch of dangerous people. Like you say, it's deep at dangerous. That's the issue, is like, you can't just focus on one person or 2 people or 3 people, somebody or 4 people. Somebody gets open, and it's by talent, by design, and by number 15, Patrick Mahomes' ability.
I was going to say, I didn't even mention him, right? I mean, exactly. Then you got Mahomes as a trigger man.
And you didn't really even have to, because it's understood as we're picturing those guys running their routes. We know the master behind all this, how he's seeing it, how he's delivering it. How about some of those throws that he was making just Monday night, that he's in rare form? And when you're saying that about Mahomes, that's saying a lot, because you would think at some point you're at your ceiling of greatness. He's surpassed that. He is playing at a level, and I don't know, I do know it's a guy who prides himself in, being the best and works at it very hard. There's no question about it. Doesn't, sit on laurels. This team just being a regular Super Bowl team, at some point you think you get a little fat and happy. He's not at all, nor is anyone around him, nor is Andy Reid, big guy that he is, but they are certainly focused on still being, and frankly, the embarrassment of that Super Bowl might have lost to the Eagles, might have been the worst thing to happen to the entire NFL, because they are coming back with a vengeance. Didn't start that way, and it looked like the Super Bowl hangover was taking them down, and they still have to, again, escape the damage that they did to themselves earlier in the season. But no, just from an offensive standpoint, you and we can definitely talk about their defense, but from an offensive standpoint, it looks like I don't know who's stopping that.
All right, so let's go this way. And my question, I'll acknowledge this, that the point I'm about to bring up is probably better in a post game, based on what the outcome may be, versus at this point. But there's kind of the notion that the Bills have, and I don't know to what extent this is ultimately true, but it's out there. The notion the Bills have built this defense to sort of deal with a team like the Chiefs, right? Now, I understand you're dealing with some injuries and some inexperience and those sorts of things, and we can factor all of that in. But at what point, we talked about it in the last time, Vic, you were on leading into the season. At what point, they put a lot of resource, obviously, this year on the defensive side of the football. At what point do you question the philosophy behind the way this thing is put together? Is it wrong to do that at this point in a pregame discussion against Kansas City, or is there validity to it, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I definitely want to see how it plays out. I know it certainly doesn't bode well, primarily because of who they are facing, but let's just back it up a week. They go up against Andy Dalton and the Panthers, and that defense did everything that it has been built to do, and then some. Now, it's still a defense that I think is over-reliant on turnovers, because that was the definition of what they were a year ago. I think you get a little bit of a false positive of this defense because of the turnover battle that it wins. And okay, I know I don't want to sound hypocritical or crazy to say, in no way am I suggesting turnovers are a bad thing. If you're getting them, as opposed to giving it up, but that skewed the picture. And Andy Dalton giving the ball away 3 times himself leading to 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Again, even if he didn't do that, they win that game, but the Bills do. But I still see that as not the measuring stick. What can this defense do this time around? And yes, I think the addition we know of Michael Hoyt made a difference in that game against Carolina. We know that they're getting solid play from Joey Bosa, just another newcomer. And certainly Greg Rousseau stepped up and did his thing. AJ Epinesa, such an athletic play on that pick. There were a lot of things to like. But yes, the injuries and now that you have Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard coming back into the fray, still haven't seen Terrell Bernard, when healthy, look like the guy that I thought would be, maybe up to an all-pro level. And I don't think I know he's not there, but are we, are we over expecting or overselling? And you don't have TJ Sanders in the lineup. Max Hairston, we'll see how much they put him out there. And Deion Walker, there's promise there for sure. And that's a rookie who I think grows and develops. He doesn't have to get any physically bigger, but grows from a mental standpoint each week. Guys, I don't know. Is it Sal? Is that where are we seeing things trending in a right direction, or are you skeptical, or what?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to take too much out of what we saw in Carolina. I mean, it was, first of all, the game got out of hand in the second half, so they just pinned their ears back and they finished with 7 sacks. It was Andy Dalton, who's no longer a mobile quarterback. I'm not really taking much about what happened in that game forward to the Kansas City game. Now, to your point, Vic, there are steps in the right direction, though. I mean, you laid it all out. The investment that they made in the offseason, not only in free agency, but the first 5 picks in the draft were on defense. So it's building for something that's going to be in place here as we move forward. The problem is that right now, and with all their injuries mixed into this, they just have not become a full service unit yet, right? It's been a hodgepodge of guys in and out. They can't get the same lineup or their best lineup on the field at the same time. So they've done a lot of work to build this defense and get it moving to where they want it to go, but they just can't get it there right now because of all these different factors that have killed them. Defensive tackle being number 1. I mean, they're down 4 guys. If you count Dwayne Carter, I mean, the whole thing has just been blown up. So it's just a bad time to be playing the Chiefs, right? We always say it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And that's what has me worried about this game. Yeah, they were fine against the Panthers, but they're catching the Chiefs at just the worst possible time, given how good they're playing and how banged up and still dysfunctional would be, I guess, a good word for the Bills defense, because they haven't been together enough to play to make it all work.
Well, that's been the description on the offensive side as well in terms of the passing game. So let's go there right now in terms of how they attack this Kansas City defense, which, look, we'll get into and dissect. And Vic, now that we have a number of games to discuss, your take on where things stand with a passing game. I hear it on Monday nights, but for purposes of this show, I think the people who watch and listen to us would want to hear where you think they stand in terms of throwing the football and the degree of issue they have there. Look, James Cook, right? I mean, as far as this game is concerned, if the Chiefs, they might be a little thin. There's a lot of talk on the defensive line at this point. I mean, you've got it. Cook is such a key element as far as this particular matchup is concerned, to get him going, to keep Mahomes and that offense off of the field, all of those things. But if you're Joe Brady, I mean, put your hat on as offensive coordinator, Vic. How are you kind of diagnosing it and game planning at this point?
Well, since you have brought up Joe Brady, it's probably fair to start the conversation with the fact that on Wednesday, Sean McDermott was asked if there is a disconnect between Sean and Joe Brady. And it was a fair question. John Warrow of the AP asked it because on Monday, Sean basically said one thing about the passing game. That there was wanting to see more from that, or whatever his words are, acknowledging that was lacking, and that the run game had been, the dominant part of what the Bills were doing offensively. And Joe Brady basically said there isn't a problem there. If I'm kind of get in the spirit of what he was talking about, but definitely they were saying different things. And Joe, I know, said words to the effect of it wasn't needed. Like they were fine with what they were doing because, yeah, you had James Cook running for 216 yards and historic run game that he had, and the run game as a whole, just getting so many yards on the ground and controlling the game. That said, that isn't going to work when you are dealing with a team that can be as quick striking and as explosive as the Chiefs are, and that the way they are playing makes that, to me, a strategy that isn't going to be great. Now, if you are able to control the football enough to limit the times that Mahomes is out there and play some stall ball, sure. But how many teams have tried that against Kansas City and get burned by that? Because it's an obvious tactic.
Sure,
it could burn them. But I'm also more troubled that would even be the way the Bills have to approach it. That's how you approach it when you don't have the MVP on your team. And they've got Josh Allen. And what's happened here? Because here we are, this deep into the season, and we are deep into the season, and this team has 5 wins. Yep, against 2 losses. Great. That's a strong record as you approach the midpoint. But we are not seeing a hint of what has made Josh Allen, or what made him last year the MVP, what has made him one of the elite great quarterbacks of this game, what allowed him to get a contract that included a record $250 million bonus, in guaranteed money, in the offseason. Something is amiss. And it starts, I think, with not having receivers who threaten, who take the, quote, top off the defense, who get open well. But a year ago, that wasn't a problem for a team that could score 30-plus points because Josh made it work with them. Josh made it work with them. Josh also made it work with the ability to throw and run and do a lot of damage with his feet. We're not seeing that. It's to say you've won 5 games and that the best part of your offense for 4 of those wins has been James Cook and the offensive line and the running game. It's a good thing to have. It's certainly the Ravens wouldn't complain except for their record right now for other reasons. But with Derrick Henry being a great back and then Lamar Jackson, but they've got other issues, including Jackson's health. But in terms of the Bills, to me, this isn't the formula. And when Joe Brady says they didn't need the passing game, they need the passing. Don't say you don't need it. Even if it doesn't have to be 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns by Josh, but it needs to be a factor.
Vic, what drove me nuts about that comment from Monday is that, they didn't need it. He's absolutely right. They didn't need it against Carolina, but they sure as hell needed it against the Falcons. They needed it against the Patriots, games they lost. Quite frankly, they weren't very good, as we know, against the Saints and the Dolphins, 2 lousy teams who were both in those games in the fourth quarter, partly because the Bills don't have a very good pass offense. You take the fourth quarter out of that Baltimore game, guys, and they are at best a mediocrity in the passing game, and maybe a little bit below mediocre when you look at the numbers, taking that 251 yards in that one quarter against a terrible Baltimore defense, by the way. This has been a problem all year. So for Brady to just, nonchalantly say, well, we didn't need it this week. Well, you have needed it in your 6 other games, and it really hasn't been there except for the one quarter. Nothing's going to change, Bo. What is going to change, guys? Vic, you said he's the MVP of the league. Even the MVP of the league needs help. And right now, he does not have enough help in the pass game. They are woefully inadequate at wide receiver. You all saw, I'm sure, Steve Smith's comments today on that podcast regarding Keon Coleman, and he basically called him a flat-out bust. Can anybody argue with that right now? I know it's young in his career. I'm not going to call him a bust yet, but he is exactly who Steve Smith said he is, a guy who cannot get open quick enough for Josh Allen to be able to get the ball to him. And that filters down to the rest of the progression because he has looked at Keon Coleman as much. I think Keon still leads. Maybe Shakir went past him by a couple. I think he did in targets, but he's still the second most targeted guy on the team. And what has that gotten the Bills? They've got serious trouble, whether they want to admit it or not. And Josh will never admit it. He'll never throw his guys under the bus. They have problems with this passing game, and we're going to see it this weekend because they're going to need to throw the ball this weekend against the Chiefs.
And I just want to add this, Sal, to your point, back to Josh, the stand-up guy, the guy who, yes, among a long list of reasons why he is so beloved. I mean, it starts with his talent and giving this team hope and ability to contend, but it's the way he handles himself, and he doesn't throw people under the bus. He is about team first, and will point the finger at himself. Will be self-deprecating as much as anyone. You never get the feeling like he has ever stood in front and said, everybody else sucked and I was great. That's an extreme, but Josh doesn't come remotely close to that. And what he did do that I thought was interesting, though, after the Carolina game, in questions about that first half, was discuss that he needed to trust his feet. And then the follow-up came, explain what you mean by that. And he referenced 3-step drop versus 5-step drop. And and we know in football parlance, that's 3 steps back, shorter intermediate route, 5 steps and a drop, a longer drop is longer routes developing. And of course, there's route combinations, and that footwork plays into every passing snap. And trust it. I mean, I would think by now that's not a thing that Josh Allen worries about, but it felt like a nuanced way. And I'm not by no means am I accusing him of anything, but it felt like something that would come into your mind if you're not sure that your receivers are on the same page with your 3 and 5 step drops.
It has to do with timing. It has to do with who's getting open and when. It's as simple as that. And whether
you drop 3 steps and nobody's open, you're screwed, right? You drop 5 steps and nobody's open, you're screwed. Your footwork is going to get messed up because you know what you're doing now? Now you're trying to run around behind the line of scrimmage waiting for someone to get open. So I don't want to hear, I understand what he was trying to say. Trust my feet. No, we know you trust your feet. You're the MVP of the league. Right. We know you can do this stuff, right? Your mechanics are fine. The problem is your receivers are not open for you. That's the issue.
All right. So what's the solution? Is there a solution at this point? I mean, trade deadline, right? Let's go there right now. You're not sure what they could possibly do. Who could they add relative to the cap situation and all of this to make the kind of impact they need? I mean, it goes beyond it. And what is Gabe Davis? I mean, you see him out on the practice field. What does he bring at this point?
Yeah. I'll start just with this. I know for a lot of hopeful fans who have, want to see the drama and soap opera in Philly, which seems never ending, with AJ Brown, that is, a potential person or target for a trade. I don't see that happening. I don't see how it would make any sense for the Eagles to part ways when they are very much in contention to try to get to another Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl. And he's a big part of that, no matter how it's looked and whatever his feelings have been that he's expressed on social media. I have a feeling Howie Roseman and that team takes command of a situation and doesn't let it become something of a problem. That's from the outside. That's what it looks like. And then Jalen Waddle from the Dolphins, and we know they, play Thursday night football, but do you see a fire sale happening with that? I don't see it. I see a Dolphin team that's going to have to certainly remake itself, but taking that asset out of there and the money that he's getting, along with, by the way, the money that Brown gets, I don't see how those contracts on trades fit with the Bills. I know they can do a lot of machinations, but I don't see a dramatic move. And maybe the reason why the big news at receiver is Gabe Davis going from injured to practice squad and then perhaps on the field against Kansas City is their shot. It's like getting, but guys, is he not, Sal, is he not a little bit of an older, or maybe a little bit, maybe more than a little bit older version of Keon Coleman?
Yeah, that's exactly what he was. Now, I will say this. He had production when he was with the Bills. When
Yeah.
he had 27 touchdowns in a regular season. He was a guy that Josh Allen did trust. But when you look back to that 2023 season, and if you remember, there were like in the second half of the year, and he's playing a lot with Stephon Diggs. There was like 6 games where he had 0 catches. So you look at that at the end of a time when the Bills were really good on offense, and he was already starting to be kind of a non-factor. He goes to Jacksonville, got hurt. Now he comes back because the Bills love him. He's their Iron Man in the weight room and all that nonsense. I don't see. I mean, it's very possible that he's going to play this season. I would be surprised if it's this week after just coming back for practice after a knee injury. But I think eventually he is going to be on the active roster. But like you said, Vic, what's he going to do? What's he really going to change in this offense? Nothing. You're right about AJ Brown. What the Eagles aren't going to eat I think it's a $40 million dead cap hit next year. Do they have to swallow all next year if they trade him? They're not doing that. Jalen Waddle, he certainly isn't coming to Buffalo. Even if they trade him, they're not going to trade him to the Bills. There's no way they're doing that.
Right.
I wrote this morning, if they do anything in the trade market, guys, really defensive tackle they need a receiver. They obviously need someone. I just don't know who's possible, but there are some guys in the D tackle market or possibilities. At least you look at what they have. And everyone has been saying this name, Harrison Phillips, would fit perfectly. I mean, you could flop 2 low round draft picks to the Jets, bring him on for like about $1.5 million left on his base salary this year, would fit right into the defense. If they do anything, I'm thinking it's going to be a move like that, because I just don't see where they're going to get a receiver who's going to be any different than what they already have.
You guys see the report on Buda Baker? That was just more of maybe a suggestion than a report, but it came from ESPN to address the safety situation, right? But he's got a 3-year, $54 million contract that he signed in December of last year. I mean, I think that is important, right, Sal, to frame it that way. When you look at where they are relative to the cap, right, it makes any high impact deal with anyone who's carrying legitimate salary really tricky and difficult. They would have to do some serious gymnastics to add one of these guys.
Yeah, fans love to just throw names out there. They see, oh yeah, we can get this guy, we can get that guy. No, you usually 95% of the time, there's no way you can get that guy. You got to look at the financials. The Bills have the lowest amount of cap space of any team in the league right now. I think it's $1.7 million left. What do you think? Yeah. What are they going to do to create the space to bring in some of these players that the fans want? The guys that I mentioned in my story today, I had 3 D tackles. They are all available for between 1 and 1.5 million of base salary this year. That's about all they could fit right now without cutting or moving out from other players to move salary off. It's just not going to be. That's why I say receiver is going to be so difficult to bring a difference maker in.
Yeah, and a year ago, and it was it was a stroke of genius move by Brandon Beane, who is excellent at this type of stuff, to bring in Amari Cooper, but it was as much the cap fit as anything, right? I think they were on the hook for $800,000 or something like that, based on what had been paid by the Browns up to the point of the trade deadline or the trade that was made. So, and he did, I think, actually gave them a decent amount of contribution. He was a presence in the receiver room, all these things. And that was when they actually had a little more cap room than they have now. When you're paying, a quarterback what they should be paying the franchise guy and Josh Allen, when you made those other contract extension deals that they did with, others in that room, Rousseau and so forth, they paid out some big numbers, understandably so. You could argue maybe, I don't know if it was a Terrell Bernard or, you could argue maybe one of those deals might have been okay, but I'm not going to sit here and second guess when you're sitting back and deciding what level of play you have and what you need for the longer haul. It's a lot of decision making, and I'm not in a position to say, yeah, you really screwed that. They didn't screw up anything. What they've done is pay players the way you pay when you are a top level contending team, which is what they are. It's what they're built for. And it brings us to this, guys. However this game plays out Sunday, and it will be a big piece to that puzzle, this team is fully expected to be a Super Bowl team. And we can say it's not playing that way. We can question a lot that's going on, and rightfully so, but it would be a huge disappointment if what we're seeing now, or what we see at any point, especially, come playoff time, and I'm going to continue to assume they're there, even if they're not there as a division champion, which is entirely possible. They're there as a wild card team. It had better be a Super Bowl a Super Bowl team or a Super Bowl championship team. And is anything less than that going to be acceptable from a observation standpoint? That is, we're not in a rebuilding sort of process here, are we, with this team? I don't think so.
No, and so a couple of more points, and then your takes on each of them, and then we'll wrap this thing up. As far as second guessing goes, Vic, I might do a little of that where it comes to how this receiving core is put together, right? And Bean's highly public and very emotional and kind of energetic defense of it to Jeremy White and WGR when they questioned post-draft what the receiver situation or whatever and how they've handled that really in recent drafts, right? And where they are right now. You talk about anticipating and putting together. I mean, I think it's very fair to question the philosophy and kind of relying on what they saw last year and all of that production, which stands on its own, right? But I mean, you guys know better than anyone that things evolve, right? The way teams match up against you, they diagnose what you can do. You made some changes or whatever with regard to that. I think he is on the hook to a very fair extent as to where things stand with his passing game right now. And again, we'll see how it plays out. There's a long way to go. We'll see how it plays out on Sunday, in particular in the marquee matchup. But you mentioned Super Bowl and those expectations, Vic. Look, FanDuel has the Chiefs right now as your Super Bowl favorite at plus 500. The Lions second at plus 700. Packers at plus 750. Bills are fourth at plus 800. And I haven't tracked it as thoroughly, whatever. I have not seen the Bills that low in that pecking order. Now, look, that's Vegas. But I guess when you talk about expectations relative to the way things are trending and what the complexion is of this football team right now, Vic, I mean, I think it does reflect the very legitimate concerns that we've discussed over the course of this show and this season so far. Both of you, I'd be interested in your take on that.
All right. At receiver for sure, there was an overestimation of the ability of Josh Allen to elevate that crew. He's not doing it. And there is something, from an accountability standpoint to be said for that whatever is, whether it's how much on him, how much of it is, Joe Brady, the offensive design, whatever. And you can only scheme so much. Talent has to be able to do what it has to do. And I think we can fairly say it's not there in that receiver room. And one other point I would add, the stark reminder of what they don't have at receiver came up in that Sunday night game against the Patriots. Did it not? The guy who gave them that, the guy who was here, and that for all the reasons that came up that led to his departure, I think you've got to ask yourself, because I know a lot of others did. Yeah, that guy was a Buffalo Bill. That guy could still be doing some big things with Josh Allen at quarterback, but they moved on. And, from the standpoint of how it's going to happen or how it's going to be fixed, when you're in that hole, you have to, it's a plan that was devised before the season. And I don't think it gets revised. Last year, they sort of revised with the Amari Cooper edition, but it wasn't like Amari Cooper was the primary component that got them to the AFC Championship game. He was a component, but to say that there's a difference-making pass catcher that's going to do that for this team somewhere out there now, no.
No, I will close with this, and we can wrap it up on the receivers and basically passing game targets. Lump it all together as one. Brandon has I'm not going to say failed, but he has underwhelmed in that area. Keon Coleman, to me, always felt like a bad pick. I never liked it from the moment they made the pick. Curtis Samuel, as a free agent, has been a complete and utter waste of space. Dalton Kincaid is a first-round pick, guys. Look, Travis Kelce is 12 years older? He makes more impactful plays in one quarter than Kincaid makes in most games. I mean, we're 2.5 years into this guy's career as a first-round pick. He had a nice game, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when he had 108 yards. How often does that happen from a guy who was supposed to be a true difference maker? Dawson Knox is just a guy now. He's barely functional as a receiving target in this offense. I'll hold off on Josh Palmer. It's way too early. Khalil Shakir, nice player. He should be their third receiver, right? A true passing team with legitimate weapons. Khalil Shakir is your slot man, your number 3 guy.
Right.
He's their number 1. So they have let down Josh Allen in the area of giving him weapons to make this. And we say this, and this is what Sands will say, you guys are absolute idiots. They scored 525 points last year. They've topped 30 points how many times this year? We understand this. But you would be blind if you looked at this passing offense and thought this is a unit that's going to push them across the top and go to the Super Bowl and win it. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, Sal, I think coming out of that Carolina game, what we've been talking about, that was largely a narrative among the fan base. I think there is a realization. There's the staunch defenders, of course, and that's fine. We get it. I understand all that, and I'm willing to take that heat. But these are very legitimate questions, and the production and all of what we've outlined here, where things stand right now, relative to a Super Bowl run at this point, let alone a division title at this point. Very legitimate. So I want to thank Vic. Vic, thanks for your time, man. As always, you can see us along with sports director John Scott, WGRZ, Monday night, 7 o'clock, Sports Talk Live Buffalo. We'll have the full wrap on Bills Chiefs then, as will Sal Maiorana and the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, as always. So, gentlemen, thank you, and thank you for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. Bills and Chiefs, 4:25 Sunday at Highmark Stadium.